And our next speaker in line and the final speaker for the day is Dr. Pandula Siribaddana. He's a senior lecturer in medical education at the Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, University of Colombo, with research interest in education technologies, ICT 4D, public health information systems, and blended learning. He's a medical doctor by profession and obtained his medical degree from the Faculty of Medicine, University of Colombo. And he will speak to you on how to make an effective PowerPoint presentation. Over to you, doctor.
Thank you, Hiruni. After those two excellent presentations, I think we have a strong foundation for our this session, where I will talk more about how PowerPoint can help us in doing an effective presentation. If I can share my screen. I hope the slide can be seen, Hiruni.
Yes, sir, it's right.
Right, great. Okay, so in this session, I will talk briefly about some of the features that PowerPoint offers us and how it can complement the presentation that you do. And I will go back to some of the points that was mentioned by the two speakers as well, because it links perfectly well with developing a PowerPoint slide set for your presentation. And as Prof. Seneka said, you should not be dependent on the PowerPoint, and it's something that can complement your presentation, but it shouldn't be something that you heavily depend on. In its absence, that you cannot continue with your presentation. So it's something that supports you. So with that in mind, we'll move on. Now, I will generally focus on scientific presentations because of the audience that we have, as well as the focus of this session. But you know that when you use images, when you use imagery of in any sort, it can convey a message in its own. It can make use of the already existing knowledge and point to certain things. It can indirectly provide information that people will be able to interpret. However, in a scientific presentation, we would like messages to be conveyed more directly. So in that sense, we see a difference between slides or images that are made for advertising, as well as slides that we make for scientific presentations. So we need to walk a fine line, because PowerPoint as a tool is developed for all sorts of activities. It's not necessarily developed only for scientific presentations. It's developed for so many things. So therefore, we should be knowing what features can help us, or what features can enhance our presentation, and also be aware of certain features that might kind of jeopardize the message that we are going to deliver. Now, PowerPoint is part of Microsoft Office package, as you all know. I'm not going to talk about all basic functionalities of PowerPoint, and I'm not going to teach you PowerPoint here, but I will just point out a few things. Before that, can I ask you all, how many of you are aware that you basically have access to Microsoft Office as a PGIM trainee? I'm not sure whether there's a poll that has been created for that, but if not, you can just type in the chat and we can see. Hiruni, are they able to type in the chat?
They are able to, sir. They can type on the question and answer panel. Yes, we just got a yes to your question.
Right. So I think I'm seeing yes.
Some aware, but not sure exactly how to access it.
Yes, true. Right. So it seems like we have a mixed group. Some are aware that you have access, some are not. Generally, we have made available for the last so many years the Microsoft Office license for all PG trainees through their PGIM email. So you have to use your PGIM email, and if you make a request, you can actually obtain Microsoft Office licenses I think it continues to be offered, so you can try it out, and that will give you access to the latest version of Microsoft Office. Of course, these subscriptions change from time to time, but I'm sure many of you are already using. So the access has been provided. Now, uh, let me give you a small scenario. I mean, I'm trying to link what we have learned so far with PowerPoint demonstration that I'll be doing in a little while. Just have a look at this scenario. Um, you have been asked to do a 10-minute presentation to an academic, an audience where there may be different types of people. And you have been given the basic necessities. I will ask a few questions on this that you will be able to answer. I'm sure it will appear as a poll. How many slides would be ideal for this presentation? You will see a poll on your screen now. You can select your answer. We will give few seconds. Right. So in general, many seems to believe 10 to be sufficient. Some also believe you need about 20. But if you kind of listen to what the suggestion was, generally it's about 1 to 2 minutes. And I would suggest that you stick to the minimum, because as soon as you introduce an additional slide, that means that you're going to spend time. Generally, you will spend about a minute on a slide. However, if you practice adequately and if you rehearsed adequately, even if you have a higher number of slides, you should be able to manage. But be aware that higher number of slides means you may have to jump from one slide to the next very quickly. And if you have managed or designed it in such a way that such quick moves from one slide to the next is logically connected and easily understood by the audience, I think that will be perfectly fine. But to make life easier, I suggest that you think of the minimal number of slides that aligns with the amount of time that you are being given. In this case, I would suggest having a minimum of around 10 slides. That will give you adequate time to spend on each slide, as well as enough slides to make your points clearer. Let's talk about this aspect of it. Now, in preparation for your presentation, how will you use PowerPoint? Different people use it for different. Now you will again see a poll on your screen. How would you use it? Different people may use it differently. Depends on your know-how around PowerPoint. So express what you will do. Right. So many seems to know that the PowerPoint is capable of doing all of this and many more. So it's not necessarily a tool that you use to prepare slides, but also it can help you do various other things that are important for your presentation. So we will look into those aspects as well. Now let's see what happens if a technical problem prevents you from presenting. What would you do? Right. So many seems to understand that PowerPoint is just a tool and you are the main or the important focus in that presentation. So you continue your presentation based on whatever the facts that you have gathered, the practice that you did, and continue with delivering your message. So that's perfectly understood. So that's great. So we have a very nice foundation now to build on how to develop our PowerPoint presentation. But before going on, let's go to the basics. Now, some of these stuff Professor Seneka also highlighted, so I will be very brief in terms of moving on. Now, if you take few seconds and read this text, you will yourself understand what I am coming to. Hope you are not cursing me for having to read this. But this is what happens when you try to put all your ideas and what you are going to talk into a slides. No point in you reading the slide because these are two different um, sensory modalities that you are basically touching. When you speak, you touch upon one sensory modality, and when you show, you touch upon another sensory modality, the visual and the auditory. If you're trying to give the same input through both channels, that will ultimately lead to an overload. This we have learned in medical school as cognitive overload. And if you try to do this, this will not help the audience. Therefore, this will give you an understanding as to how important it is for you to talk the important points, as well as to supplement that using your PowerPoint visually. Now, this is about the fonts that I actually last minute added this slide. So just emphasize on the fact that when you are using a font, you use the fonts without the tails hanging on. That is the sans type of fonts, which you see on the right side, against the serif type of fonts, sans type of fonts, which generally have tails hanging on, because that's difficult to visualize on a screen. But of course, for titles, you can use that. Now, in presenting text, you have to present your text succinate chunks of text, ideally as bullet points, maximum 5 to 6 bullet points per slide, no more than 6 words per line, minimum text size of 80. Now, you can understand I was able to read it quite okay. But you see that I have not checked my spelling. So Office gives you a nice spelling and a grammar check. So why not check all these and get it corrected? Now, what you need to understand is that even if you use all these tools, you will make mistakes. And of course, if someone asks me, okay, how to correct that kind of mistakes, you need an extra set of eyes. Ask someone to go through your PowerPoint, go through your text, tell what they feel. That extra pair of eyes will detect things that you did not detect because you have got so used to it. You still read it over it, but you have made a mistake. So therefore, you need some help when you are doing your PowerPoints. Don't treat it as a slide, as a script. Now, with regard to bullet points, it is good to use bullet point. However, when using bullet points, please be kind enough to use only few bullet points. Having too many bullet points will not only distract the audience, but will prevent your message from being heard. So avoid too many bullet points. Few are okay, but as Prof. Senek also said, there may be other means of presenting your information succinctly rather than having bullet points also. Now, when you look at this slide, where will you focus on? Obviously, it will be the rabbit. And as Prof. Senek also said, and Mr. Angelo also at some point said, this is a distractor. The rabbit looks nice and the image looks quite great. So people tend to insert images to make the slides look nice. But what it basically does is it adds to the cognitive load that we talked about. Because as soon as you see the rabbit, you start imagining, okay, what's the relevance between a rabbit and an effective presentation? Maybe because it's fast that we also should talk fast. You start thinking like that. And that adds to your working memory, and it lessens the amount of memory available for you to process the important information. So therefore, it's always good to avoid the distractors, what we call extraneous cognitive load that is not helping you or the audience understand the message that is being presented. And also, the images that you present needs to be scaled and labeled appropriately. Now, this is a little bit of an explanation of the cognitive load, as I said, intrinsic, extraneous, and germane. The one you should minimize is the extraneous load. That is the information that you're giving, which is not really helpful for you to convey your message. That is additional. So that actually should not take up the cognitive load or the memory of a person in the audience. Now, let me ask another question from you. When you look at these two images, if you are in the audience, Which diagram is easier to comprehend? All right, many seems to be suggesting it's B, and some say none. Well, I would also say it's maybe none, but out of the two, I would say B seems to be easily comprehensible. The reason, although if it had been good if somebody could explain, but the reason is that there is little effort that you have to make in linking the labels with the diagram in diagram B. It's easier for you, so your mind is it's less complicated for your mind in order to link up the labels with the image. But in A, there's additional work. You have to read the number, you have to link it with the list also is not numbered, and that kind of makes it rather difficult for you to identify these places. So this tells you that the way you present can actually minimize the load on your audience. And that is what you should be doing when you're presenting even a table, a diagram, or a complex image. You should try to make it as simple as possible. Now, this is something that happens regularly. Usually, the presenter in this instance will say, I know that this is a complex diagram. You all probably will not be able to see it. But what this represents, that is usually the statement that is accompanying these kind of diagrams. When you do research, you generate a lot of information, a lot of diagrams, tables, complex stuff. You would love to show it, but that is not going to help you communicate the important message. So unless it can be well comprehended, well supported, and you can use it for your presentation, don't include it in a PowerPoint, and that's not going to help. It will take up time. Colors already taken. You must choose colors wisely. The text only become unclear, but could also lead to confusion, distraction, headache, nausea, vomiting, and ultimately loss of bladder control. So you should use colors wisely. Animation, same. However, too much animation could also make the audience dizzy, frustrated, annoyed. So you use minimize animation. Well, as you all know, animations can help you keep the audience attention on a specific point, and you should be using that for that purpose, and probably not for any other. Right. So with that, I will move on to the PowerPoint demo, and those basics will help us understand. When we are designing the next PowerPoint, it'll help us design it the way we want. But however, what you also need to know when using PowerPoint is that you have the freedom to be innovative. Innovative in terms of delivering a very comprehensive message. So PowerPoint also has features that help you be innovative, but at the same time, you have to think out of box and then present your message clearly. And it's not necessarily to be um, traditionist and present your PowerPoint in the most traditional way. You are no longer need to stick to that because you have a lot of freedom. But please be adhere to these basic principles that will help you convey a message. All right. So I will now move from the PowerPoint that I am showing to my desktop. Um, Henrik, may I ask whether you can see the desktop, the PowerPoint working area? Oh,
Yes,
great.
sir. Yes.
All right. So,
Yes, it's visible.
okay. The things that I am going to discuss, actually, that was the next slide, are these. I will discuss a little bit about the slide master and layout, slide notes, a little bit about charts, design ideas, a new feature, rehearsing, presenting the presenter view, using the presenter view, and easy navigation during a PowerPoint. Now, uh, we'll start off um, with slide master and layout. Now, why are we talking about slide master and layout? Now, if you see the previous PowerPoint, apart from the slides that has images, you tend to see a consistency in its presentations. The titles are generally of the same size, same place, same font, which makes it easier for the audience to actually understand that what I am just presenting is a key area or a main title of my presentation. Now, if that title appears small in one slide, larger in another, in a different color, bold or italics, then that shifts that thought. So it will be difficult for the audience to keep track of what am I doing, what's how important this point might be. Are we in a subtopic or a subsection of the presentation or that particular main section? It's very difficult for the audience to keep track of. So therefore, it's always best to maintain consistency. Now, when maintaining consistency, you can do it using the layouts of PowerPoint, or else you can use a master slide. Now, we'll just have a look at using both instances. Now, when you start a new PowerPoint presentation, I would say file, new presentation, you will see something like this. Now here, you generally get a thumbnail on your left side and your main area is on the middle. Now there what you get is a title slide. Now this is a title slide and a title layout where you can type the slide. So I will just type test presentation, and the click to add subtitle may be your name, right? So I will say name of the presenter. This is my first slide, that is the title slide. Now, when you add a new slide, you will see that automatically the layout change. The layout now is that there is a heading on top and a bullet list in the bottom. So here I will say introduction. Now, when I move to the next slide, when I say new slide, again it will give me a heading and a bullet list. I will just type method. If I type again, I get another. So I can say results. So similarly, I will add one by one to my presentation. So these may not be for all. It's not necessarily a template, but I'm just putting some headings. What you can see is all my headings are now consistent. It's of the same size, same font, same place, and it appears very consistent over the slide. So in a scientific presentation, it's best to maintain that consistency in whatever the way you want. It's okay to use different designs, but to maintain that consistency, that is an important element. So layout is one way of maintaining that consistency. Now, if you want to change the layout, that you do using the layout menu in PowerPoint, and you can see there are so many layouts here. For instance, if you want to put a section break, you have a section header layout here. And if you want to have a comparison between two aspects, you have a layout that fits that need, right? A layout that fits that need, and title, and then the two boxes that allows you to can. So these kind of layouts will help you not only to do the presentation quickly or develop the PowerPoint quickly, but also to maintain the consistency throughout your development process. So always try to use these layouts in order to keep that consistency. Now, the next way of maintaining consistency is to look at the master slide. Now, generally, a lot of people don't use this effect, but it's something useful for all of us to know. Now, the master slide, when you go to slideshow, when you go to home and design, when you go to view, you will see an option called slide master at this point. When you click on the slide master, this is what you see. Now, this slide master view will tell you the template that you are using at the moment. This is your main slide. Whatever you put into this slide, the top one, will appear in all slides. And these are individual layouts that you see in the menu. So now supposing if you want to insert your logo to all of your slides, as was discussed last, what you do is you select the main slide of the master, go to insert, and insert a picture of your choice. And let me see what I can insert. Uh, let me find a logo. Okay, so this is nothing relevant, but I will. There's a logo that I have in my desktop. I will have that logo inserted somewhere where it won't distract. Now, if I close this master view by going to slide master menu and close master, now you can see all of my slides have the logo inserted at the top, right? So by doing that, you can actually create consistent set of slides with designs that fits, that will appear in all of your slides. Now, even I can do this to other types of designs. Now, if I go to slide master, and if I say I want to insert a line between the title and the rest of it, I can do that by simply inserting a line in the master, maybe halfway through, and giving it a color, get rid of the outline. Sorry, this should go into the main slide, not necessarily on a sub slide. And now when you close the master, you will notice that particular line appears in all the slides. So when you play the PowerPoint, you have this line appearing in all of the slides. So that way you can design your own template fitting your needs, and that you do using the slide master. Now, also what you notice now is that when you basically go on top of these changes or the designs that you do, yeah, that you did, you can't change it here in the main working area because you have included into the master slide. So unless you go to the view slide master, then you can of course change it. You can click on it and do whatever the necessary changes, but that you have to do it in the master slide and not necessarily in the other slides. Hope that is clear with regard to master slide. So there are two ways for you to develop a consistent PowerPoint presentation. One is using the slide layout, and the other is by using the master slide deck, and that is any PowerPoint will have that option. All right, so that is one point that I wanted to emphasize on during this. So our next thing is about slide notes. Now, many of you wonder why the slide notes are important. I mean, I can keep my notes somewhere else, but the importance is this. Now, supposing you have decided on mentioning key points at different times in your presentation. Like say, for instance, in the introduction, I want to mention uh, about a past experience with regard to making a presentation. So I make a note of it. I say, mention a past experience about making a presentation. So I make a note of it. In some instance, in a scientific presentations, it may be the fact that you have a important finding, but that is not so important in terms of your presentation to put it into the slide, but you want to mention it when you talk. So if that is the case, you can mention in these notes. Now, why is this important? When you're making a presentation nowadays, you have this option called um, presenter view. So when you go to the presenter view in slideshow, you get the presenter view. Now you can see why I said that. Now here, while this is my slide that is on the screen, you also see the note that I mentioned. Hiruni, can I confirm that you see this presenter view in the screen?
Yes, sir,
Right.
we do.
Okay. So you see the slide, the main slide on your left, and you see the next slide that will be coming up, and then you also see the notes page. So you don't actually need to write down points on a piece of paper anymore. You can have all the information, all the text or the points that you need to talk about briefly mentioned in the slide notes, and you can adjust the font sizes if you want. But please don't put all the text that you're going to speak or your narration into the notes unless you want somebody to go through it later on their own. Don't put the whole text, because then what will happen is you again will start reading that narration in the notes page rather than looking at your audience and talking to the audience. So it's not a good practice. So therefore, just keep it for only the important points that's going to help you. So notes page is something that is available in under each of the slides. You can just drag on this line and increase or decrease the space that is available for the notes page, and later on you can get a printout of the notes page alone. So that is also useful for you to practice. You can get all the information into the slide while you design it, and later on get a printout for you to practice. And thereafter, at the time of presentation, you generally don't need the paper, but you can see the points in your notes page itself in the presenter view. All right. Then we will move on to looking at charts and tables. Now, that's an important aspect in any scientific presentation. You can see that when you insert a new slide, you always have this option in the middle to insert various objects. And out of those objects, one is charts and one is table. So as previously Prof. Seneka also mentioned, what happens most of the time is that you try to copy stuff from either your thesis or the published paper and try to put it as it is into your slide. Now that chart or the table was made for publication in a journal or in a printed form uh, for people to take time and read. But those tables and charts are not meant for a presentation, which is of a short duration. And amongst many others, there are other, this is also be presented. So it's always best to adapt and create your own chart or the table for the presentation, which will emphasize on the important points. Now, this may mean taking some pieces out of your original diagram and having only the important points visible. Of course, when you're doing that, it should be scientific, and it should not like a piece, part of the chart coming in, which without the rest has become unscientific in terms of its presentation. But you have to be innovative in that instance to get only the important points and develop the chart in a presentation friendly manner. Now, you need not to develop the chart in the PowerPoint, right? So you can do it is that in Excel, you always have the option of generating nice charts, things that enough tools are there. Being Microsoft software, Excel facilitates interoperability, and that means that whatever designed and made in Excel can be taken into PowerPoint. And therefore, it's a matter of copying the chart from Excel and putting it into PowerPoint. Then you can do the necessary adjustments. You can make the slide smaller and adjust the chart so that it's visible, clear uh, to the audience and properly placed. Right. So now I have brought the chart made in Excel into the PowerPoint. Now, of course, rather than just putting the chart, you either should support a little bit with little bit of text what you are actually showing through this chart. Now, in that sense, sometimes most of us do in traditional terms is to say the heading, the result one, result two, result three, and try to emphasize this. You can also do something like this. If you say, now in this chart, we are actually showing the number of research studies done during a particular year. You might say, highest number of publications in health informatics in was uh, I would say 13 in 2009. So basically, rather than giving a traditionalist type of heading, you are actually putting the message that you want to convey into the title itself. Now that hits the audience saying, okay, this is the key message, and the evidence is there to show that that is what I am, that this is the evidence that supports this particular statement. So this is one way of presenting important messages, deviating a little bit away from the traditional form of presentation. So similar to charts, you can also use tables, but be mindful that tables also should be comprehensible by the audience, rather than having very complicated tables that SPSS prepare, or that is generated through other means, which the audience cannot read. Most likely, if you think that the audience cannot see, they will never bother reading it. So it might as well not be there, because that wouldn't add value to your presentation. So that's about charts and tables, how to put them in. Then an interesting feature that PowerPoint has introduced in recent times. These are design ideas. Now you know that all these tools are moving into artificial intelligence and a lot of design supports. Now these design ideas, which is a tab on your upper right hand corner, will provide you with templates or designs that you can use for certain slides. So it basically will look at keywords that are presented, and it will allow you choose from the designs that is seen. So if I want a design for the heading, I might select one of these if that matches. And sometimes when you press the design again, you might find there is a different design idea coming in. So you can test it out, play around, and see what type of design ideas that it gives. Sometimes it gives animation, sometimes it gives videos as well. But you also have to be mindful about the impact of that kind of templates on the audience, on your presentation. So it's always best to be simplistic, minimalistic in terms of your designs, but this can give you ideas. Now, for instance, in this methodology slide, I have put down certain key words, and as you can see, it can actually give you an icon based slide for your to present those keywords. It may not 100 match 100%, but it gives you the option of changing that icon as well. So it helps you design a more readable slide, and you have to choose the best that fits what you want to present. So if you are to develop this kind of a slide manually, it will take us a lot of time. But here, the design ideas feature simply did it within a second or two, without us having to find icons or identify colors and so on. So most of these designs are made in a way that the audience will be able to look at it thoroughly. Now, those days we were talking about use of colors and use of various designs, what not to do and so on. Nowadays these designs are made with the understanding that most of the PowerPoints will be done using high contrast high quality projectors or in LED screens. These are very high contrast, very high in quality. So the variations in color and design will be very apparent, and it can contrast, will look nice. But of course, you have to remember that when you are doing a presentation in a forum, things can go wrong. The projectors might lose its ability, may not be very clear. It might have issues in terms of projecting certain colors. There may be people who are in the audience who are colorblind. So therefore, the use of colors and icons and diagrams must be chosen carefully. And generally, the design ideas, when they give, they keep to those key things and try to avoid colors that ultimately will put the audience in, will make things complicated for the audience. So you can see if the design keeps aligned with your general objective of the presentation, you can use it because it can add value. All right. Then another feature that I will just mention to you is about rehearsing. Now, both Mr. Naranjan as well as Professor Senak emphasized enough on the importance of rehearsing. Now, the problem with rehearsing is, how do you rehearse while for a particular time to make a scientific presentation when you are using PowerPoint? PowerPoint itself gives those features. If you go to review menu, slideshow menu, you can see there is an option called rehearse timings. When you click on rehearse timings, you will start seeing your presentation, and you can notice in the upper left hand corner a timer appearing. Now that timer will tell you the total time that you spend on this presentation, and the timer in the middle will say the time you spend on your slide, on that particular slide. So I can do this repeatedly so that I will finish exactly on 10 minutes or 7 minutes or 10 minutes that I am allowed for this free paper presentation, or in a half an hour that I have been given a presentation. So you repeatedly do it, and then you don't need to look at a clock, but you will finish on time even if you don't look at a clock, because you have rehearsed it. And this is the way to do that in PowerPoint. Now, there is another option that you can use, that is slideshow, record slideshow. When you record slideshow, you can actually record your voice and the video alongside the slideshow. Now, the importance of that is, you generally would want to rehearse in front of a mirror so that you see yourself in, how you behaved on the stage. But in PowerPoint, now you have the option of recording your voice as well as your image while you do the presentation, so that you can play back and have a look at yourself as if you are in the audience. And that helps a lot. You might think, okay, this is something that I have to emphasize more. Here I should be looking more at the audience, and so on and so forth. So that's recording option is also an important feature that you can use. Right. Now, the last thing I wanted to point out to you is the presenter view, which we already have visited. That is in slideshow menu itself. When you go to presenter view, you have a lot of features available, including visibility of the next slide as well as the slide notes on your right side, and also a thumbnail of the slides. When you're doing your slideshow, a presentation, this will not be visible to your audience. Only you will see this. The audience will see only the slide here. So you can actually do whatever you want on the other side, other slides, or move to other slides without the audience noticing. And if you want to move to a slide which is a little bit beyond the current slide, you can quickly go to that, and then you can come back. So that you can do without having to exit the PowerPoint and trying to move from one to the next. Now, with that, I will finish the demo. But one other thing that I would want to emphasize on is that PowerPoint is not used only for making presentations like the one that we just show, but it can also be used to make posters, right? There is a template that is available in Microsoft, which you can actually use. For instance, I will show this. If you type in Google or in a browser Science Project Poster Microsoft, you will see this poster template. Once you download it and open it in PowerPoint, it's a matter of just filling the boxes and changing the sections according to your liking. And with that, you actually can develop a poster presentation also using PowerPoint. The usefulness of this is that generally nowadays the conferences ask you to send an e-poster because it's displayed in the web or in a LED panel. So therefore, this can be used. So with that, I will conclude the presentation and over to you, Hilmi.
Thank you, sir. We have a few questions that have come in, sir, and for some of them, Professor Rajpaksha has already typed out the answers. But for those attendees who are not checking the question and answer panel, let's try to answer them live also. One attendee wants you to please repeat showing how to access Slide Master. Is that possible,
All
sir?
right. Okay. Yeah, sure. Of course. It's simple enough. The slide master is available in the view menu. In the view menu, you have as the fifth icon an option called slide master, and that's how you access. And for those who find it difficult to identify these features, just type it in Google, how to access slide master or how to access these particular features. One by one it will lay out the steps. So that's the easiest way for you to learn do PowerPoint or anything for that matter these days. You can use Google for searching.
Okay. And then, sir, there's another question. Will the audience see the notes that I have typed?
No, audience will not see the notes because in the presenter view, that view is only for the presenter. So the audience will only see the slide. The notes is only available for you.
Next question, sir. When we are asked to submit the documents for research proposals and etc., the requirement is that we use Times New Roman, but it has the tail part that we were talking about. They're asking if there's anything that could be done about it. Can we change it to Calibri, or should we use something that
Yeah,
doesn't have the tail?
yes. So what I was talking about was PowerPoint presentations that are done in a big screen for an audience to see, and because of that, I mean, for printed or publications, Times New Roman is okay. I mean, because that's read up front. I mean, close to your eyes. But for presentations, which where the audience is at a distance and that you are supposed to read from a bigger screen, or even in reading in a web page, it's always best to use the text or the fonts which are without that tail end, so that it won't clutter.
So please repeat that poster presentation here.
Right.
I
So
think it's a she.
poster,
She
I
wants to
did.
repeat.
All right. Okay. So to do the poster presentation, what I did was I won't be able to explain it in detail. You just type in Google Science Project Poster Microsoft Office. You will get to this web page. You just download it and open it in PowerPoint. Sorry, open it in PowerPoint. And then rather than having a single slide of the generic nature, you get the whole PowerPoint. So this you can actually change. So you can say, you can change your images, you can put the problem, hypothesis, project overview, any variables, the material. Of course, this not to say that this is the only type of template that you should use. You can change the headings, you can move the boxes around. So this gives you the template, so you can quickly change it, and it won't take that long for you to quickly do a post presentation. Hope that helps.
Yes, sir. Then, sir, what is your opinion on getting images from the web and its copyright issues?
Yes, so getting images from the web should always be done carefully. You should. I mean, if it is in the public domain, you can use it by giving the reference acknowledgement that this was obtained from this particular site or this particular resource. However, there may be instances, say in certain, say if you are using it for a formal educational program and so on, then of course you have to obtain rights from the original author or the source of that particular. Generally, if it is for an academic purpose, when you write to these people, they will give. Otherwise, you will have to withhold that. However, in Microsoft, when you are searching for something in Google, if you are wanting to find an image, say for instance, an image about something, a diagram about say hypertension treatment or something. I'm a medical educationist, I don't know anything about it though. I will get one of these diagrams. So this is coming from GP notes. Now we don't know whether these are copyrighted or not. However, in Google, when you do an image search, in tools you have an option of selecting usage rights. So from there, if you use Creative Commons licenses, you will only see the images or the text which are released under Creative Commons licenses. Now, Creative Commons licenses is a freehold license where people can use it generally for non-commercial users. If it is for use for a commercial purpose, then again, there is a different type of licenses. Now, when you look at these, what you see is most of the images will come from Wikipedia and not necessarily from recognized high quality sources. But sometimes you find the necessary images and the diagrams in Creative Commons when you search for Creative Commons. I'm sorry, I can show you in sharing. Sorry, I can show this shared screen also. I thought I was sharing. So this is what I meant by where to select. In images, there is an option called in tools you have usage rights, and from that you select Creative Commons. This is what I was talking. And then you get if you say all, you get all the. Sorry, my internet was a little. Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Hello,
We can
can
hear
be
you,
heard.
sir.
That's great.
Yes, sir.
My internet
Yes.
suddenly went down. So this is what I was referring to in your image search tools. You have usage rights, and there, if you say Creative Commons license, you only get the images or the diagrams licensed to be used in for non-commercial uses. Yeah, here it is.
Yes. Sir, is there a way to use the presenter view when doing a Zoom presentation without them seeing our notes?
Um, I'm not quite sure about that. Maybe our technical admin should be able to say if that is possible. Sir, I'm not sure whether you are.
I don't think you can do it
Okay.
because for presenter you have to have one on the main screen and the other has to be through the output to the projector.
Yeah.
You can do it if you have two screens. If you set up another screen to your computer, you connect a PC screen to the laptop, you can do it.
Right.
But because I tried to do it and couldn't get it.
Yeah, I also think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, here.
Thank you, sir. And then there's another question, sir. Can Keynote in Apple be used like in Microsoft?
I think Prof. Senaka will be the best to explain that.
Yeah, it can. You can use Keynote. It's as good. In fact, it's better. It's got more features and it's much more user friendly. It formats itself automatically. But the thing is, it's a little risky because you need to have an Apple computer at the place where you're presenting. And the danger of that is that you might take your Apple computer there and find that there is no plug to connect it. Then you are in real trouble. So it's safer to stick to PowerPoint. But some people, now most of the conferences, I think the CCP also sets up the facility to use Apple computers, because a lot of the foreign speakers come with Apple computers. So if you have the correct connector, which is usually USB-C to whatever the projector connection is, then it can be used, and it has the identical set of facilities and probably more.
Yes, thank you, sir. And then again, is there any particular video format that can be used in PowerPoint? Some cannot be uploaded.
I think most of the commonly used video formats are supported, but there may be ones. But it's always best, whatever the video format is, to test it out first. And because sometimes some machines will have plugin issues, there may be corrupt plugins in some instances. So always double check that the videos will be playing, even if it means that you double check it in the presenting computer also, because that's the way to make sure that it will work.
I think the safest thing is, if you are using videos, to take your own laptop to the place where you're presenting and check it out in advance to see if it runs, because it might run on your screen, but some of the projectors don't support certain formats. And if the drivers are not up to date, it won't work. So the safest thing is take your laptop and get it checked out there before, and have a backup plan. In case the video doesn't work, you have to have some images from the video to show on a separate presentation.
That's true.
Hiruni, I think you missed one question. The slide size, was it?
I was about to get to it,
Yeah.
sir. I think it should be directed to you. Yes, sir.
How to decide on the slide size?
It
for the
says how to
slide
decide the slide size for the scientific presentation. Yes, sir.
Slide size, sometimes scientific presentations define that there is a particular ratio that you should be using, and that will be defined in instructions. If not, the default would generally fix, because all the formats of PowerPoint uses a different proportion slide set for a template to that of the newer ones. But both are supported in many of the fora. So
there is a small problem there, in that now the widescreen slide format is better because you can put more information. But sometimes certain projectors and certain configurations of the laptops don't support it. So when you put it, then it comes compressed, and then it's really distorted.
Yeah.
So better always to check with the computer, the place they are doing it, whether run it and see whether the projector can accommodate. The problem is usually with the projector and the output on the projector, not so much the computer.
Yeah,
I think it's safe to stick to the usual 4:3, 4:3, which is what we used, I think. Because Pandula, you use a widescreen, right?
I used widescreen.
So that worked fine, but on Zoom it works fine.
Yes.
But when you're going for a projector, it's better to test it out in advance.
Yeah.
Now it's not so much a problem because most computers have both.
Yeah.
If you have an updated version of Windows and Microsoft Office, it doesn't become a problem. But some of the older computers, there is a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
One other small tip is that generally safe to have multiple copies of your presentation in different places. I think Pandula mentioned that, and also have them in the latest PowerPoint format as well as the old PowerPoint format on another drive, just in case your laptop doesn't work, especially when you go overseas for things. You might run into a situation where the PowerPoint version on your computer is too new. And it won't support the old version. So what we normally do is we save an extra copy on the old PPT and another copy on the PPTX. And also for additional security, email your presentation to your email and keep, so that wherever you go, you can download it.
Yes.
The USB drives don't work, CDs don't work, all sorts of things can happen. And then it's very embarrassing.
Okay. And I think this might have to be the last question, sir. Is there an easy way to include references, like using Mendeley?
Yeah, it is. I'm not quite sure about Mendeley, but I think Mendeley also has a plugin for PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And certainly other reference managers like EndNote and reference, at least EndNote, has an automatic plugin to PowerPoint. But it's not really necessary because you can format it on a Word document and just cut and paste the text into the format because you are not going to have so many references on a PowerPoint slide.
Yes.
But yes, the plugin is there. When you install it, you can choose to install the Mendeley or the EndNote plugin into the PowerPoint platform.
So generally, if a reference tool is being used for the PowerPoint, it means that you will not ideally finish it on time. Because so many references that you are trying to
Yeah.
manage it short time. So better have it simple.
Yes. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Professor Senaka Rajapaksha. Thank you very much, Dr. Pandula. Thank you very much, Mr. Nalin. Sorry, Mr. Niranjan. With that, we come to the end of the webinar. And I would like to thank our speakers again for all the information you have given all the attendees today. And I would also like to thank Farmivo for their support. And I hope everyone who attended the workshop today is a better presenter, and that they know their do's and don'ts of presenting. Thank you very much, and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.